inspiring biblical families. Turning Hearts Podcast with your hosts, Ryan Phillips and Dennis Aldy.
Welcome back to Turning Hearts Podcast. Ryan Phillips, Dennis Aldy, back with you again. Appreciate everybody tuning in and listening to what we have to say like we're some sort of experts, but we'll try to encourage everybody anyway. Today, Dennis, let's talk about fathers once again. It seems like we're on the subject a lot, but we're both in that category, so we can speak to it. But let's really speak to the relationship between sons, daughters, and their fathers. And just children in general to the fathers, the importance of that role, and the protector of that relationship. What does it look like? It's kind of easy when they're young. The stage I'm in, even though in the present it seems difficult. But what I've heard from all the people around me and those that are stages above me, it's really easy at this stage with small children. It's almost a given, you walk into the room and daddy, that relationship is just, it's easy to maintain because they love dad no matter what dad's done. You spank them and then a few minutes later, they're just loving all over you. But as it gets older, we get into some more serious things, relational things. And I can't speak to much of that, but I have a group of men around me, and there's a lot of difficulty. You're maintaining hearts, but let's speak to that just a little bit and get some wisdom and some biblical truth.
Sure. No, I would say there's a verse coming to my mind. I'm going to read first because I think there's so many things to talk about, and a lot of these things we've said at little points in other talks that we've had, but we'll try to sum it up and then hit specifically dad and sons and then specifically dad and daughters, because there's difference, but it's the same priority and same need, really. I think that it's interesting to me that the God that created everything gave himself, and you've heard me say this numerous times, gave himself the title of Father. And this is in no way meant to diminish the role or the title of mother, but he picked Father. And I do believe that that's symbolic of the absolute mandatory, absolute seriousness, I can say a lot of words, of the role of father. And so it could never be underestimated. There's always ways that we approach being a father. Now, as well, we're obviously husbands, and that's like our ultimate relationship here on the earth is with our wife, and how we're walking out, and us and our wife are walking out Christ in the church according to Ephesians chapter 5. But if chapter 6 goes into children, obey your parents and such. And so the verse I want to use, though, is out of the Old Testament. It's Deuteronomy chapter 6. A lot of people know this verse, and I'm going to tell from my personal experience. So Dara and I, we got married, and we kind of had a plan that we might not have kids like super fast, but it was 6 months later she was pregnant, and so we're having a kids, and then after that one's born, for I think 6 more times, every about year and a half, 2 years, there was another child, so we had 7. And I remember my growing up, and I remember things that I was allowed to do, things that were in my heart that I wish had not been in my heart. And really what I remember is, and I had just this incredible parents, loving, supportive. They disciplined me. They taught me. They spent time with me. But still, things that I longed for in the communication of the relationship that was even more than what I got, and I got like top notch. And so all those things are going on, and we're having children. And I don't know what Bible study I was in, but I came across Deuteronomy chapter 6, and I just decided this was going to be my life. So I'm going to read it to you. I got my Bible here. Very, very well-known verse. It says, "Hear, O Israel," it's verse 4 in chapter 6. "The Lord is our God, the Lord is one. And you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might. And these words which I'm commanding you today shall be on your heart." And then this was the part that, and so now, well, let me just finish reading the verses. I get distracted. I get so excited, I don't know what to do. "And you shall teach them diligently to your sons, and shall talk of them when you sit in your home, when you walk by the way, when you lie down, when you rise up. And you shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and shall be on the frontals as frontals on your forehead, and you shall write them on the doorpost of your house and on your gates." And I remember reading that with, a couple of young children going, "Oh Lord, I've got a job." Because I think this is the job of the Father. And it's to love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, and teach your kids diligently to do the same. And, I think everybody goes, "Oh, sure, we read the Bible, we do Bible stories time in the house." And I think we don't understand first loving God with all our heart. I think it's more than maybe what the average Christian man may participate in, maybe not. But then teaching diligently our children to love the Lord our God with all their heart, all their soul, all their strength. And when he says these words, he's talking about the commandments, he's talking about this, but he says you do it when you wake up, do it when you lay down, do it when you're sitting in the house, you do it when you walk down the road, you do it when you're working, you do it when you write it on the door, you do it when you walk in the house, you need to see it. It should be a marker on your wrist. So it's like, oh no. It's like I never get a break from this teaching diligently my children. And the number one thing, I've said this before in a podcast, that I see in today's father in relationship with his kids, and I'll be truthful, I see it in today's mother too, is we're distracted. And we are not teaching diligently. We are not loving the Lord with everything, and all means all. And so we're not doing that. And then our kids are going to hit 15 years old, and we're going to be in a lot of circumstances where we're like, oh no, what do I do? I feel like I'm too late in the game. And I don't want that to be the issue. But that is most often the case for Christian parents. So I just want to speak to men and say, if you're a man, God made you a leader, period. I don't care if you like to lead, you don't like to lead, your mama likes to lead, whatever. If you're a man, biblically, you are a leader, and it's time to do it. And if you don't know how to do it, just do it. That's the best advice I can give. Yeah. And the way we do it is we begin to set as two priorities in our life. The first priority is to love God with everything that I am, and teach my family to do the same thing. And I it sounds real simple. It sounds real concise, but that is, it's when I wake up, it's when I lie down, it's when I go to the table, it's when I watch the television, it's when I go to work. There's never a moment I'm not teaching it diligently. I just love the fact that he said diligently teach it to your sons. Mm-hmm. And I think your daughters, your children, your wife, if necessary. And so that's the first thing that I would say is, are we, I'm looking for something on my little notepad over here. Are we actually prioritizing loving God and teaching our children to do so? And I think it becomes a priority of the family. And I just want to say this isn't a criticism. I'm trying to think. the majority of Christian, and I'm talking godly, God-fearing, love Jesus, all the things that you want, we are distracted with our job, our ministry, our neighbors, and our cell phones, the internet. And all of those things have made life so busy for us that our family is missing out. And they're going to get older, and your wife and you, your marriage is going to get older, and you're not going to be together or as close as you want to be. And it's because we didn't go back and do what we should be. So I say it to men unashamedly. I say it, do not ever put your job above your family. I totally understand. Most of us have defined a godly man as a great provider, and we all want to provide for our children more than we had growing up. And in the beauty of the American culture and capitalism is we can do that if we'll work hard.
Yeah.
But you will pay a price if the job is above your family. And it's an eternal price. It could be your children's, salvation. At a minimum, though, I think the price is the relationship and the quality of the relationship with our children. And I think we can all say, well, we wouldn't want that, and we don't think that'll happen. But I can tell you, I talked with numerous families that I would sit back and say, you did everything right, or at least you did everything normal Christian, and your children are 18 and they're deciding they want to be love things that the scripture doesn't love. They want to be liberal. They want to be, and I say that as a political term, but I'm not meaning it political. I'm meaning it as they're wanting to forsake what their parents grew up in and taught them in what their friends want.
Yeah.
And so I don't know how hard I could say it. I would love to say it real hard, enough that men would quit their jobs. And I know I'm saying what I'm saying, that no career, no ministry would ever be more important than your wife and your children. And it's our relationship is love the Lord our God and raise our family, turn our heart to our family. I'm going to share this story that a lot of people may have heard, maybe not. I grew up 20 years ago. The greatest, my hero of the faith is James Dobson. I would love to get to meet him someday. I don't know that I ever will. He was the leader of Focus on the Family. I listened to his radio shows every day for years, and they were just so encouraging on family, and turning your heart towards home was one of the sayings they always had. And I've kind of reconnected with listening to him in the last month. But he tells the story of his own father, and his father was a super successful evangelist. And he would be gone for 2 weeks at a time ministering. So for the sake of Jesus. Mm-hmm. And then he would be home for 2 weeks, gone 2 weeks. And so one day, James Dobson's mother, when James Dobson was 16-year-old, called her husband, and he was away on a ministry trip as an evangelist, called him up and said, you need to come home right now. And he was like, what do you mean? And so she told him about the attitudes that their son James Dobson was having in rebellion. And the dad immediately shut his meetings down, flew home, went home, and within 2 weeks put his house up for sale, quit the ministry, and moved somewhere and took a job making almost nothing, just to not lose those last couple of years of James Dobson's life. So it's encouraging to us that if you waited till 16, you can still recover.
Yeah.
But the point of the story was a dad had given himself another priority, not a bad priority. It was serving Jesus priority. And he almost lost his son. And that son, because a dad came home at the age of 16, sold the house, went from making great money to almost no money, but so he could be home. And that son goes on to be one of the most world-renowned leaders and speakers on family that has impacted, I'm sure, millions of people. Mm-hmm. And what had that dad not done that? And so I share that story to say it's not too late, but it is our requirement. I think about in the Old Testament, you know, we have all these kings and the stories of the different kings through the book of Kings and Samuel and really all the way through the prophets, and all that is telling about a different king. There were, if I'm not mistaken, it's either 43 or 45. I don't remember it exactly, but it's 40-something kings of Israel and Judah, because the nation divided after Solomon, and only 8 of them were godly. And I think that what it shows us is these kings built their kingdoms, but they did not build their families, so we didn't have succession of righteousness running the nation and their families. These families hated each other. They killed each other. There was all types of wickedness. And so again, it's this history lesson on fathers. You have to make the priority of your life your family. Mm-hmm. And nothing stops it. And I'll be honest, I've shared this story, I know, with you, Ryan. I had a father, this is about 10 years ago, that just met our family randomly at our house in Mississippi. He showed up for a garage sale. And he was shocked at just my children and the relationship they had with each other. And this was just at a garage sale on a Saturday. I don't know how, and how they related to Dara, my wife, and I. So much that he stayed for like 2 hours, and he was just like, why do your kids act like they love you? And I talked with him for a while, and he came back like 4 or 5 more times. And finally he called and wanted to know if he could come over because his family wasn't, and he had like a 12-year-old daughter, an 8-year-old daughter, and it wasn't going well. And he wanted to know, he said, I want what you have in your family. I want it in my family. He said, what do I have to do to have it? And I said, well, just tell me what your life's like. Where do you spend your time? Where do you spend your money? And I listened to him, and you know what? High five him. He's going to make a fortune. He's going to have a lot of money. He had a great job, a great career. But that was overwhelmingly where he spent all of his time. And so I told him, I just said, well, I got to be honest with you. I don't think you'll ever have it. I'm sorry. I know you think I'm a pessimist. But unless you're willing to pay the price, and the price is anything that comes above your family, you will not have what you want in your family. And he left that day very sad because he was not willing to pay a price. He wasn't willing to change his job for the sake of relationship with his family. Mm-hmm. And so again, it's huge.
Yeah, it's kind of like that lie that I've heard so many times and probably believed it certain times, but you're working hard, you're away from home, and your family's supportive, and they're believing, and they're just like, I'm just so thankful for my husband that he's make the sacrifices to not be around in order to take care of us. And I believe that that's a lie, in that the sacrifice is noble that he's making.
Yes.
Because you may be able to provide that house or the college education or all the things, but what you're sacrificing is of much more value.
Yeah.
You're trading down.
Totally.
And then you get to that stage where they're adults and, maybe they have careers and you guys have some common ground on working hard, but not necessarily a relationship with one another because that was sacrificed.
Hard. Yeah. No, that's totally it. And I think we've bitten into the lie that the ultimate dream would be to have sons and daughters that make a lot of money. And in doing so, that's not bad. I would love for myself to make millions of dollars. I would love for all my kids to make millions, unless the millions came against our relationships. Because what I have done is I did, Ryan, I quit my jobs. I turned down incredibly lucrative. I have an electrical engineering degree, and I'm not bragging. This isn't the Dennis Aldy show. I'm just saying, by the grace of God, I set as my priority that I wanted relationship with my kids at every age, not when they're 28. I wanted it at 2, at 8, at 14, at 16, at 20, at 20. I want it forever. And that is eternal. And I'm telling you, no amount of money on the earth is as valuable to me as having that. And by the grace of God, I have that. Most people really admire what we have in our family. And
absolutely. And
so in humility and by the grace of God, I've gotten it, but I have paid every price to have it. I've turned down, I can't tell you the opportunities I turned down, but it was because they would distract me. And that's the key word I almost want dads to hear today is distraction. We are so, we are so distracted. We have let cell phones ruin our lives. We have let the desire to be connected and not miss out on anything ruin our lives. And we cannot be that way anymore. We have to become totally attuned to our family. And I don't want to forget the whole love of the Lord your God. We got to be doing that. But in the midst of that, we're teaching diligently our kids to do it by connecting with them rather than being distracted. And kids know, I can tell you, Darren and I, we love children so much. We love being grandparents and want to grandparent every child we ever meet is the reality. But I can tell when kids are neglected. And it's not like this bad neglected, but you can tell they're longing for a connection. And mom and dad are just too busy. And they put, and excuse me, I apologize, they put an iPad in front of them because mom and dad need our time. And it is training our children that when they're 17 and they want to know about dating and they want to know about drugs and they want to know about sex, they're going to find it in an iPad because that's what you train them to find it in. Mm-hmm. And I promise you, your greatest desire is that they would find it in relationship with you. You said something earlier when we were talking, Ryan, I really appreciated. You said that we have such a low vision. And I agree with that. We have such a low vision of what it would be like when they're 17. Yeah. And our biggest hope is probably that they're normal.
They're still alive.
Yeah, they're alive. They hopefully not pregnant or hadn't gotten anybody pregnant. Probably going to graduate high school. Yeah. Maybe no major car accidents.
On drugs.
Hopefully not addicted to anything. And that's just such a low vision. Jesus bought something way more for the Christian family.
Yeah,
he did.
Yeah.
And so I'd love to just talk a little bit now. I don't know how far we are. Let me see if I can figure that out. I can't, but
I think we're good. Let's dive into that. Well, let's do the sons, and then maybe on the next one we'll do daughters.
Okay.
We'll spend some time on that.
Sons. I read statistics like 63% of all homes today are without fathers. How does a young man know how to be a man if there's no man to teach him how to be a man? I mean, it's foolishness that dad, instead of giving his family him, and now I'm talking specifically sons, him, he gives them a nice car, a nice home. I mean, those are great things. We want those things, but they should never come above the reality of our need for the time with dad, and really with all of our sons, with our daughters, with all of it, the reality is we give the exact same thing, so to speak, to our sons and our daughters, but obviously they need something slightly different. But the thing we give is time and talk and conversation and it's time. Dad, I was there. I had 7 kids. I can always do the work quicker myself. If I have to build something, fix something, I could always do it better myself. But I refuse to do it that way. I refuse. I'd rather not ever fix it and not ever accomplish what I want than to push my son aside and not bring him near to learn it with me. It's that time. And sons are so incredible, the passion, the energy, the heart, all the stuff, and they need a dad there to teach them how to handle it all, how to be a young man, how to be a little boy.
Yeah.
And we cannot let that escape anymore. We really can't. And really the ages all mean something a little different. I'll say, my vision this was my vision for my family. I wanted when they hit teenage years, which I don't believe in teenage years because it's not in the Bible. So we have children, adolescents, young men, and men in my house. And same for daughters. We don't believe in teenagers. But I knew what a teenager was for my age when I grew up through it and my friends. And I just kept thinking, Lord, if this is really what I get, first of all, I should have never had kids. And secondly, Jesus didn't do a whole lot. His blood isn't very good. If my relationship with my teenage type or that age children is no different than someone who doesn't have Jesus.
Yeah.
So I had a vision for honest, open-hearted communication. And I'll tell you how I got it is I forsook so much of my own promotions in order to have time with my kids. And a verse just came to my mind. It's something like, you remember it, I just got a part of it, but it's like, take up your cross and deny yourself. What's that verse? I might have it right here. Let me see. But it's self-denial.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the call of Christianity. Is Dad says I could go be all these things. I could, and they're not bad. Matter of fact, they're awesome. I was created to do some of them, and I will do them at the submission of it coming against my priority of my family. Mm-hmm. That's when I say no to it. And so job promotions, a lot of things, just deny yourself and go be with your kids.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely a huge step. And, there's a lot of us that have been forced into it lately. We didn't get an opportunity to be noble and quit our job. Our jobs were taken from us. But for that father that's, he's got all that time with his son now his young ones, give some practical pointers on how to establish that relationship. Maybe for a father, he's having a tough time with all that energy and busyness of a young, crazy little boy that just wants to do everything. How'd you do it with your sons when they wanted to come out? Maybe you were hunting, you got a deer, you're out there and you're thinking, this is a big mess. It takes a lot of sharp objects, and I got a bunch of energetic boys.
Yeah.
Walk me through that.
Well, the first thing I would say is that most often, and you talk about energetic boys, that's what boys are, and even sometimes young girls. The first thing I would say is the Bible commands and tells children to obey their parents. And the only reason kids don't is parents don't raise them to. Parents don't train their children to obey. And so If that hasn't happened, your kids are probably going to drive you crazy, and you're not going to want to be with them. And you will fuss and complain at them for it. And the truth is, it's your fault. It's dad's fault. It's mom's fault. You didn't train your children, so now they are not pleasant to be with. And so, and I know they're strong-willed children. We've talked about that, and you have to get them to come under authority. But you just do it. It's your life. It's worth it. It's worth it. It's worth it. I can't say that enough. So if your child annoys you, if your child wears you out, be sure it's not just childishness, which they need to have. They got to have that. And if it is, and you need them to go deer hunting with you and or help you skin an animal and there's sharp objects, just run around the house 4 times before you do it. I mean, just use some of the energy. But you need to be able to say to your children, and I'm just going to use the example you mentioned, we're skinning an animal, they're sharp. Yeah. These are sharp. We're not going to play. And that's all. That should tell them to settle down and obey. And if it doesn't, then you probably didn't teach your kids to obey you. And I don't know another way to say that. And so you need to go back and establish who's the boss in your family, who's the child, and if the leader speaks, then whatever.
And back.
Yeah. If the leader speaks, then they obey. And once you establish that authority and obedience, kids are going to be kids, and you want them to be kids. You don't want them to be anything else. But if you don't have that, it's going to be tough. It is. I'll say this. I'm a deer hunter. I love hunting. I do it all the time I can. Lord willing, I'm going in the morning, And I took my kids with me, and they were 3 years old, and I self-denied. I got them up in a stand, and literally we've been there 5 minutes, and I'm thinking today's the day I'm going to kill a giant, And my son's just wiggling and moving and wiggling and moving. I'm like, shh, come on, shh, gotta be still. You gotta be still. Dad says, and so they're trying, and 3 minutes goes by, and they look up and they whisper and they go, Dad, I gotta go to the bathroom. And I'm like, we've been there 8 minutes. We just used the bathroom at the truck 20 minutes ago. Dad, I can't. Dad, now.
It's gotta be a water bottle around here somewhere.
Well, and so you know what I did? We just dropped our britches right there from the top of the stand, right off the stand, and went. And you know what? If we kill a deer, great. But Dad is with son.
Yeah.
That is the best goal I've ever had.
Mm-hmm.
It's just worth it. Same thing with changing the oil in the car. They get it all over everything. They make it a mess. But Dad is with son, and he's teaching him something.
That's good.
I mean, same thing with skinning the deer. I hold that knife with them. I mean, if that's the example, I could come up with multiple examples. Building the fence, cleaning out the garage. Dad is with son. Time and conversation and language and talk and training is happening, and it just doesn't get any better than that. Dads, we need to be teaching our sons how to respect women.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to learn it if we don't teach them. And if we're gone to work and there's no one to teach them that, they're not going to learn it. They're going to grow up and not at all. We teach them to provide for the family. We have to work, all those things. I'm not saying you don't work. I'm saying you don't let work take you from your sons. Now, I want to say this. I raised kids and worked 50 hours a week, but I never let that be above my family. So we might change a job or redo a job if we're finding that job has its own call all the time, or I never get to see my kids at night, or it's taking my ability to be with my family. That's the issue is priority, not that jobs are bad. Obviously, we love jobs. We need jobs.
Right.
We got to have jobs. And so those sons, again, they need to see you, Dad, praying every day. And if they don't you dare expect them to grow up and pray. Mm-hmm. They need to see you, Dad, leading the family talks, family times, you pulling out the Bible and reading to the family out of the Bible. They will learn how to lead their family from watching you lead your family, Dad. And if you're not doing it, you're not doing it, and they're not going to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll always pray for God to manifest and change them. But it was God's intention that you teach them diligently. And it's specifically talking to fathers and sons.
Well, anywhere along that line, I know you write a lot of stuff out. And did you ever write out anything like what your vision was for your sons, or like where you were headed with them at a young age? Or did you do that later in the 13, 14, 15 time? Or did you set a goal for yourself when they were young? For your perspective, I'm saying, like, certain things that you wanted them to have established by a certain age, or did you wait until they were at a more of an understanding? You should work on that obedience early, obviously.
I think I don't remember when I wrote it, but it would have been in one of my journals. But again, what I wrote truthfully was not specific totally to sons, but it was, and not specifically totally to daughters. I wanted relationships. That's really all I've ever wanted. I want my kids to want to talk and be with me every day. And when they don't know an answer, I want them to find it. Their desire would be, where's Dad? I got to call Dad. When they're hurting, I want them to want to talk to Dad. And when I say Dad, Mom as well. But I really did want it for me.
Yeah.
When they, like today, it just, I love it. I have in my home right now a 24-year-old, a 22-year-old, a 21-year-old, and a 17-year-old. So they all live at home. And you know what? Like Friday nights, they go out, this group, and they go to this outdoor sand volleyball place. It's got like 25 volleyball courts, and they go there and play Friday nights from 10:30 to midnight. And every week they ask me if I'll go with them. Now, unfortunately, I don't, because I get up real early and I just think 11 o'clock at night, play volleyball. Have you lost your minds? I told them if they'll move it up, I'll be there every Friday. But they want me to be at their Friday night social event so that their friends get to know me. Now, how does that happen?
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't grow up that way necessarily, and I don't think many of us did. Again, I had excellent parents. But I had bitten into the lie that, it was all about the friends. But it's my treasure. It's like gold when my sons say, "Hey, Dad, we're going to go outside and play this game. Please come." Hey, Dad, they had gone and jumped out of airplanes 3 or 4 times. And they, 2 months ago, they just paid for it and said, "Dad, we want you to jump out an airplane with us." So I did it. It was awesome. Everybody, you got to do it.
Yeah.
But the point is, now my 24-year-old just wants me there when he does stuff. My 22-year-old, my 21-year-old, my 17-year-old. And that's the vision. That's what I wrote down. I want that relationship. Mm-hmm. Now, when it comes to sons, I want them to be hard workers. I want them to understand money. I want them to have discipline and character. And so I knew that, but as my first son began to hit about 10 to 12 years old, I began to write those things out. And then, as you know, I took them through rites of passage when they hit puberty and such as that. And it was huge. But I'll summarize everything, and not really summarize, but I gave all my time. I coached every team. I took different jobs so I could coach the teams. I made sure that my house was the funnest house for everybody to go to. And I didn't do that just by buying video games. I did that by me being the guy leading the fun at my house and daring anybody there to beat me in anything. I mean, I chose to be active and involved in every single thing that my kids wanted to do or needed to do, so that they would know who Dad was and that they have Dad's heart. You know, I would put them down at night. So I was pastoring a church, and that church met at my house on Wednesday nights. And my kids went to bed at 8:30, and those meetings would start at 6:30, and we're supposed to be over about 8 to 8:30. Often would go to 9:30. And then our group, we all loved to play cards. So we'd have people playing card games at our house till 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. This was on Wednesday nights. Well, at 8 o'clock, I would gather my children, and I'm leading the meeting. I would gather my children and tell them it's bedtime, to go around the room and tell people good night. And so because they had been taught to obey, I could do that. And so they would hug Mom and Dad and go back and be putting on pajamas, and they would tell people good night, and we would all say good night. Well, at about 8:15, I would get up and leave the meeting, even if I'm leading the meeting. I would just say, hey, everybody, I got to go. Put my kids down. I don't know when I'll be back. Y'all just keep doing whatever you need to do. And Dara tells it, and I didn't remember it, but Dara tells this. And again, please don't think this is about all the great things Dennis Aldy did. It's the grace of God in my life.
It's just the example we get to live and hear about.
But every night I would get in the floor with all my kids. Every night. I did it every night, but I did it especially on Wednesday nights. And there'd be 40 people in my house. And I would get down in the floor, and we would read a Bible story, or we would just talk for 10 minutes. And then I would look them all in the eyes, and I just kind of point and say, now, you know that if you guys need me, I'm here. And I love those people in there, but they are zero compared to you in my life. And I'm going to serve them because Jesus called me to. But you're my life. You're my priority. I will drop this church in a minute if you need me to. So I used to tell them that every Wednesday night. And I lived it. And so, dads, you can do that with your sons, especially sons. Oh, my Lord. Dad, if you're outside, you need a son by you. Dad, if you're inside, you need a son by you. Dad, no matter what you're doing, you need a son by you. You need to be talking to him. And I'll tell, to me, one of the best questions you could ever say to your kids, girl and boy, is, tell me what you've been thinking. It's not a miracle. That is like magic to the heart of a kid. When they get 6, 10, 15, 18, 22-year-olds, you know what I say to them? Tell me what you've been thinking. And they just unlock and want me to hear what they've been thinking. And so I just say that, men, we've got to raise up godly men. The earth, feminism has been unleashed in America on the earth. It's no longer a cool thing to be a masculine man. And we renounce that in Jesus' name, because we were made in the image of Christ and of God. And that was to be a man, to be a leader. So dads, go lead and teach your sons to be great men. The only way you'll do it is with time and conversation. I really is. Do you have another thought on that, Ryan?
That's good. I mean, it's a big thing to sign up for, but it's like you're saying, it's so worth it to have that relationship and to even get that fruit much earlier than we tend to believe nowadays. You get that fruit when they're an adult. That relationship with the son. Yeah. It's kind of this mentality or vision that some have that I'm going to lose them for a while, and hopefully they'll come back around, and then I'll eventually have a relationship with them. But if you do it this way and really invest that time, and you're teaching them, and you're like you're saying, you're being invested in their heart, you're just asking them how they're doing and helping them work things out at an early age, and then they're coming to you at a little bit older age, and then that relationship solidified by their, early adulthood, and then you just get rid of all that space of, go figure it out on your own, go find yourself, and then hopefully you'll come back. You just get rid of that.
Yeah. One last thing I'll say, and then, dads, if you haven't done it and your son's 16, it's not too late. James Dobson's father came home when he was 16 and just started spending time with him, and he became one of the greatest ever in the earth leaders in Christian ministry to families. And it's because his dad did that. So you can do it, dads. But your sons need somebody to talk to about sex, about masturbation, about pornography, about girls, about friends, about how do they think about they need wisdom. And that wisdom was meant to come from you, Dad. So go be it. You have what it takes. The enemy keeps telling us we don't. We screwed up too much. Maybe our dad didn't do us. I think about the reality of how grateful I am that my father taught me how to work on vehicles. He made me do it. I always wanted to go do something else, but he made me work on tractors. He made me work on the farm and do farming things. But now it's my greatest joy. And so it's so easy, Dad, to just tell your son, you go in the house, I got to do this because I'm in a rush. Life is not worth that. Life is not worth losing your son so you can be finished quicker. Yeah. And that's just a small thing, but it's part of the bigger thing. And so be the guy to initiate those conversations with your son about what he thinks about girls, about sex, about masturbation, all of these things. They have to have a safe place to talk about it. Otherwise, they're going to hear about it in the locker room or at school, and it's just not going to be truth, and it's going to mess them up. And so, Dad, you can do
it. Especially if your kids are in a setting like a public school or where they spend a majority of their time around other people besides your family. I mean, that's a huge force to compete with, especially in that arena. So, well, bless you all, and hope this was a blessing to you and a challenge for you and your family and to you and your sons and your daughters. We're going to come back and talk about daughters.
Sure.
And we'll see you then. Bless you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Turning Hearts podcast.